In this video, I want to look at Jennifer Rosenbaum. Jennifer Rosenbaum was a candidate for Georgia's Henry County Board of Commission. She was also a student at Emory University studying law, and she has received a sentence as of last week of life in prison for murdering her 2-year-old foster daughter. Jennifer Rosenbaum had been in foster care herself because she was beaten by her parents. So she was taken away and put into foster care because of that. And she had apparently been a little bit difficult in foster care. She'd been quite mouthy and rude to people. And her friends and her sister believe that she'd turned her life around since then and wanted to help other foster children. She went regularly to church and was on a program to learn more about Christianity, and she gave everyone the impression that she was somebody who wanted to do good in the world. Jennifer Rosenbaum claimed that Laila had choked on some chicken and that she had tried to dislodge the chicken. She tried to resuscitate her using CPR, and that it hadn't worked and Laila had died. In reality, Laila died because she had been punched so hard in her stomach. They believe it was a punch because of the shape of the bruising, that her pancreas had split into two and she died of internal bleeding. Laila's body was covered in bruises and she was also malnourished, so she had been beaten and starved before she was murdered. I want to add in here that the two girls had broken bones. Laila had 2 broken bones, one in her knee and one on one of her arms. The one in her arm was never given medical attention, so it had reformed. The bones had healed, but in the wrong way, so it wasn't. It was a bit deformed. And Millie had a broken bone as well in one of her arms. Millie talked about how they'd been hit with a belt on their bare skin. She would get hit with a belt if she was too slow at getting dressed, and if they fell asleep in the car, they were hit for doing that. And Millie talked about how she was made to eat food she didn't want to eat, and after she threw up, she was made to eat that. They were only in the hands of Jennifer and her husband Joseph for 4 months, and they had all of these injuries. And what I want to look at in this video is the way that that Jennifer Rosenbaum came across in public, and why it is that she was so helpful, as it seemed, to the mother of the baby, Tessa Daniel. Tessa Daniel had been, she'd had to go to prison because she was using drugs, and although she loved and cared for her children, she wasn't able to look after them properly, and so the children had been taken into foster care because of that. And she had known Jennifer Rosenbaum before, a long time ago. They'd both been in the same home when they were both foster children, and I couldn't find anything in the videos of the trial to tell me what exactly had happened between the two of them.
And what was your relationship like with Jennifer Hogan? And you said it, y'all were in a shelter at that time?
Right. She was a lot older than me. We weren't really like friends, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember us being enemies exactly. But then I didn't reach down deep in my brain to try to figure it out. All I saw was like her image, like how good her and pictures looked, and looked like she would be able to take care of the girls, and she was a pretty upstanding person. Seemed like if she wanted to help me and she remembered me, that it was, like I didn't even try to think of no bad stuff. I was like, I just kind of accepted that.
Jennifer Rosenbaum had got in touch with Tessa Daniel using Facebook Messenger.
It says, hey girl, I know we haven't seen each other or talked in a while, but I wanted to let you know I'm praying for you. I met your girls last Wednesday at juvenile court. I work with the district attorney's office prosecuting juvenile offenders, and we used the same courtroom as defects cases. Your girls are beautiful and look so much like you. I think it was your mom who talked to me for a minute and said you were having a hard time. It just stuck with me over this past week, and so I wanted to reach out and let you know you are in my prayers.
And in the meantime, Tessa Daniel had already heard from elsewhere that Jennifer Rosenbaum wanted to foster her children.
I said, thank you so much. God, I miss them so much. I can't believe I put my babies through all of this. When I knew what it felt like firsthand. I talked to Miss White, and she told me that you were interested in getting my girls until I can work my case plan. I think that would be amazing. It would make me feel so much more comfortable with the whole messed up situation. I'm fully ready to work towards getting them back, but if they have to be away from me for a while, I would much prefer them be with you. Thank you so much. You are literally the biggest blessing.
Jennifer Rosenbaum had told her neighbour that Tessa had been in the same foster home as her when they were children, and that now she was a drug addict. And the way she'd phrased it was karma's a bitch, because she was now looking after Tessa's children. And the neighbour felt really uncomfortable and didn't want to be on her own with Jennifer Rosenbaum again. That suggests that there was some bad blood in Jennifer Rosenbaum's eyes. I don't think that the bad karma was just about her having done drugs, although it could have been. I get the impression though that there was something else going on, that Jennifer Rosenbaum thought that now she was going to be able to teach Tessa a lesson. Tessa was really excited because Jennifer Rosenbaum was the first foster parent who filled her in on what was happening with her children, sent her regular updates with photos, and allowed her to visit them. So far, since her family had stopped looking after Laila and Millie, her sister, she hadn't known what was going on with them. And so she was initially really excited and thought Jennifer Rosenbaum was a really kind person who had her best interests at heart. And looking at their messages is quite interesting, because you can see how Tessa will blame herself and say what a bad mother she is when she gets updates from Jennifer Rosenbaum. And Jennifer Rosenbaum doesn't tell her that she's wrong about that. She just, but she is really encouraging, and she seems to want to reassure Tessa that her children are in good hands. So if Jennifer Rosenbaum was going to end up murdering Tessa's daughter, and if she had a chip on her shoulder and was for some reason resentful of Tessa, why would she be giving her regular updates and sending photos and these reassuring messages? I think the reason is because she would have got narcissistic supply from Tessa being so grateful to her all the time. And the way that Tessa was saying that she's a bad mother, and being so relieved to hear news and to hear that they're doing okay, would have made Jennifer Rosenbaum feel powerful and like she was superior to Tessa. And that is how a narcissist gets supply, by feeling powerful and by feeling like they're the one in control. So although it looked like she was doing a massive favour to Tessa by updating her all the time, from Jennifer Rosenbaum's point of view, what she was doing was she was making herself feel good about herself, as if she's this really nice person, generously reaching out to this drug addict who she clearly had a lot of contempt for. And she was also able to feel really good about herself because this person looked up to her and thought she was doing an amazing job and was just really grateful to her all the time. While Jennifer Rosenbaum was getting her narcissistic supply from Tessa, she was at the same time abusing her daughters. And so she was indirectly abusing Tessa because she knew that the well-being of her daughters was obviously really important to her. And so by abusing them and not telling Tessa, she was betraying Tessa without Tessa knowing about it. So she was, in her mind, she would have been humiliating Tessa and degrading her through what she was doing. And she also would have got narcissistic supply from the power she would have felt when she was hurting the children. So she would have been able to get her rage out. She herself had been beaten as a child, so there would have been a lot of rage inside her because of that, because she would have felt deeply rejected. It was her parents that did the beating, so she would have had a lot of rejection and pain inside that would have been what made her split off from herself and become a narcissist. And she won't be in touch with that pain. Instead, she'll just have a lot of rage inside her. So when she was abusing the children, she was taking that rage out on people who wouldn't be able to defend themselves. And at the same time, she was managing to keep up this perfect exterior and to get the respect from all these different people around her, in church as well, different friends. You know, she helped her neighbour. Her neighbour had a disability and she helped her to get a placement somewhere. She appeared to be this do-gooder. So she was getting her narcissistic supply from this mask, and then she was able to now get it at home because she had a couple of punching bags in her 2 foster children. She was effectively love-bombing Tessa Daniel. She was getting her narcissistic supply from Tessa's admiration for her. But at the same time, when Tessa said that she was a terrible mother, she would never give her any validation about that.
I said, oh my goodness, my poor baby and Ivy, how did she handle that? Oh my God, I am supposed to be there for stuff like that. I can't believe everything. I can't deal with not being able to be their mommy. I'm so upset with myself. They need me and I'm not there. This is the worst feeling I've ever felt my whole life. And she responded to that and said she did fine with it. It was just to get fluids in her and start the meds. She didn't even flinch or cry. She just said, ouch.
Even though she was giving her regular updates, she was lying in those updates. So she'd said that her broken leg had happened when she had been at the gymnastics club, when in reality she had done that herself. That injury had happened when she'd pressed Laila's knee really hard. So she was lying about that. She was lying about Laila going to daycare and becoming ill from being at daycare and getting a bug from the other children. And she was always making excuses for why Tessa couldn't see Laila.
DFACS made me schedule my visitations and stuff through her, so I'd always try to ask her about that, but it'd never be a good time.
I'm going to direct your attention to a specific conversation on August the 12th.
At 2:05 p.m.
And what was her message to you?
Just a heads up, I'm on my way home early. The daycare called and Laila has a fever and is throwing up.
And what was the next message that came?
At 2:06 p.m. same day, it says, I'm about to take her to Children's Health Care to get her checked out, but the daycare thinks she's caught the bug going around in her class. I'm going to keep her and Millie separated so Millie doesn't get it.
And the next message?
A minute later, she said, but depending on what the doctor says and after I talk to Miss White, it may be a visit with just Millie.
Were you scheduled to have a visit with the girls on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you, to your knowledge, did you know before that day that the girls were in daycare?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of.
She'd regularly send photos of the children, but they were mostly of Millie, Layla's older sister, who was 4. So there weren't many photos of Laila. And when she did send photos of Laila, she made strange excuses.
Says the lighting is weird, so you can't see it too well, but her little cheeks are red from her fever. Pitiful thing, she doesn't feel well at all. And then she said, I don't know why the lighting is dark at the bottom. It also may be the filter. LOL.
You can see how she tried to explain away why it wasn't possible to see Laila very clearly in the photos. And, she would have been trying to hide her injuries.
She said, at the doctor's office now, this is us here, LOL. I resent the photo since the first one had a bad filter that made it look like her arm had something on it, LOL.
So she was always dangling a carrot in front of Tessa. Tessa would get really excited about seeing her children, and Jennifer Rosenbaum would keep cancelling. And just give various excuses as to why that was. So although she seemed to be really helping Tessa, looking after her children, giving her all these updates, actually Tessa was getting more and more worried because she wasn't seeing her daughter, and something was starting to feel a bit strange. So she started to record the phone conversations with Jennifer Rosenbaum. So it wasn't just that Jennifer Rosenbaum had a mask on and that she had to hide who she was to the world, and that then she would take everything out on the children. It was also that she was getting a lot from pretending. She was abusing Tessa Daniel by pretending something, by pretending to be this kind of caring friend to her, who was watching out for her and her children. That in itself was making her feel powerful. And she enjoyed, in my opinion, she enjoyed abusing the children more because it was a personal vendetta she had against Tessa Daniel. And so she was getting something from pretending to Tessa. She was getting this feeling that she was betraying her, and that in itself would have given her narcissistic supply. Narcissists will cheat on people and they'll talk behind their back. They might make up gossip, give false information about people, and they'll get narcissistic supply from doing that. They'll get narcissistic supply from the person they're cheating with, from all the positive attention they get from them, from the people that they're sharing the gossip with, because that person feels special for being told the information, and so will give the narcissist some positive feedback for that. And but they'll also get narcissistic supply from the actual betrayal itself, because they feel powerful, they feel like they've got the upper hand, like somebody really needs them, and they have the choice about how they're going to treat that person. And that's the very control that narcissists like to feel. And so in this situation for Jennifer Rosenbaum, she was obviously doing something a lot more serious than lying and cheating. She was hurting and eventually killing one of Tessa's children. But to her, she would have had an exaggerated sense of that narcissistic supply from that power that she would have felt. Feeling like they are humiliating their victim and degrading them without the victim knowing can be really exciting for a narcissist and give them a lot of narcissistic supply. They really enjoy feeling devious and feeling like they have all the power and like they're able to fool someone who might might be quite an intelligent person. You know, they feel like they've got the upper hand, they've won, because everything with a narcissist is about winning. And so for Jennifer Rosenbaum, she would have been feeling like she was fooling Tessa. We can see from what she said to her neighbour that Jennifer Rosenbaum felt a lot of contempt for Tessa Daniel. And when she was lying to Tessa, and Tessa was so grateful, and she was putting herself down and saying what a terrible mother she was, I think that Jennifer Rosenbaum's contempt would have really been at the surface, and she would have thought that she was being really clever and devious, and that Tessa couldn't see her for what she was. And this in itself was part of the abuse of Tessa. This was her degrading Tessa and devaluing her, just as at the same time she was to her face building her up.
She continued, but she is a trooper. I was more freaked out about it than she was, LOL. And I replied and said, wow, she is a trooper. Even I want to cry when I hear I have to get an IV. That makes me feel better a little, I guess. I still feel like a failure, though. Why does it feel like it's going to be so hard to do everything I need to do to get them back? I'm trying to stay faithful, but I'm freaking out on the inside. And she replied to that and said, it can be overwhelming, I'm sure, but you're doing it one step at a time. It seems minuscule, but you are making big steps and should be proud. You will get there. It just takes time.
She would have felt like she had successfully fooled Tessa, and that Tessa was despising herself, really. Thinking of herself as a terrible mother, feeling really guilty for not being there for her kids because of what Jennifer Rosenbaum was doing. So I think she would have really got off on the fact that Tessa was full of all of this self-doubt because of what a great job Jennifer seemed to be doing. And I think that was part of the reason why she would have talked about all the great things she was doing with the kids, just to look like such a wonderful foster mother, so that Tessa would feel really inadequate.
And then she said Millie practicing her flips. We put her in gymnastics, so she's super into flipping and stuff.
I think that wasn't just a mask that she put on to protect her true intentions from being seen. I think it was also something that in itself gave her narcissistic supply. I'm going to be doing more videos about the Rosenbaums. I want to look at the way that Jennifer Rosenbaum's friends were so supportive of her, how hard it was for anyone to really believe in who she really was, and what that's about. How she managed to pull the wool over people's eyes, and why people found it so hard to look at the evidence and see the truth about her. I also want to look at the role Joseph Rosenbaum played in enabling her to do what she did, and why he would have done that, why it is that narcissists often have enablers, and what kinds of people they are to stand by and let a narcissist do what they do. So that's going to be in future videos. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.